Audi has just accomplished something that seemed impossible in today's luxury SUV market. The 2027 Q7 delivers 623 horsepower from a twin-turbocharged inline-six engine that weighs 87 pounds less than the V8 in the Mercedes-AMG GLE 63. Let that sink in for a moment. More power, less weight, and as we'll discover in the next few minutes, a technological leap that fundamentally redefines what a three-row luxury SUV can achieve. If you've been considering a Mercedes GLE or BMW X5, what I'm about to reveal will make you reconsider everything you thought you knew about this segment. The automotive landscape has been remarkably predictable for the past decade. Mercedes dominated with their refined V8 powertrains, BMW countered with driver-focused dynamics, and Audi, well, Audi played it safe with incremental improvements and quattro all-wheel drive competence. But the 2027 Q7 represents a fundamental departure from this script, and the implications extend far beyond Ingolstadt's ambitious engineering targets. Let's address the elephant in the room first. How does Audi extract 623 horsepower from a 3.0-liter inline-six while maintaining emissions compliance across both European WLTP standards and American EPA regulations? The answer lies in what Audi internally calls their asymmetric twin-scroll turbocharger array, a system that employs two turbochargers of different sizes, working in a sequential yet overlapping configuration. The smaller turbocharger spools up instantly from idle, eliminating the traditional turbo lag that has plagued even the most sophisticated forced induction engines. Meanwhile, the larger turbocharger activates progressively from 2,800 RPM, providing what can only be described as a relentless surge of power that doesn't plateau until you're well past any speed limit on any continent. But here's what the initial press releases won't tell you. This engine architecture shares absolutely nothing with Audi's previous EA839 platform. We're looking at an entirely new engine family, designed from a blank sheet of paper with one specific objective: to make V8 powertrains obsolete in the luxury SUV segment. The bore and stroke dimensions of 84mm by 90mm, or roughly 3.3 by 3.5 inches, create what engineers call an over-square configuration. This means the cylinders are wider than they are tall, allowing for larger valves, better breathing characteristics, and crucially, the ability to rev higher than traditional six-cylinder engines while maintaining reliability over 250,000 kilometers, or about 155,000 miles. Now, contrast this with what Mercedes offers in their GLE 63S. Yes, you get a magnificent 4.0-liter twin-turbo V8 producing 603 horsepower, 20 less than the Q7. But that engine weighs in at approximately 476 pounds fully dressed. The Audi's inline-six tips the scales at 389 pounds. That's an 87-pound advantage positioned ahead of the front axle. And for those of us who understand vehicle dynamics, that translates directly into steering response, braking performance, and cornering behavior that no amount of electronic chassis control can fully compensate for in the Mercedes. BMW's approach with the X5M competition seems almost conservative by comparison. Their 4.4-liter twin-turbo V8 generates 617 horsepower, splitting the difference between its German rivals. But here's where the conversation becomes genuinely interesting. The X5M competition weighs 5,390 pounds, or 2,444 kilograms. The Mercedes GLE 63S comes in at 5,467 pounds, or 2,479 kilograms. Early specifications suggest the 2027 Audi Q7 in its highest performance variant will weigh approximately 5,115 pounds, or 2,320 kilograms. That's a 275-pound advantage over the Mercedes and a 252-pound advantage over the BMW. Do you understand what this means in practical terms? We're not discussing marginal improvements or subtle refinements. This is a fundamental recalibration of the power-to-weight equation that has defined this segment for the past 15 years. The Q7 achieves a power-to-weight ratio of 8.2 pounds per horsepower. The GLE 63S sits at 9.1 pounds per horsepower. The X5M competition manages 8.7 pounds per horsepower. In a segment where manufacturers fight over tenths of a second in 0 to 60 times, Audi has created a mathematical advantage that cannot be easily dismissed. But let's talk about something even more significant than raw acceleration figures. Something that truly separates the engineering philosophy in Ingolstadt from what we're seeing in Stuttgart and Munich. The 2027 Q7 employs what Audi calls predictive active suspension with road surface recognition. Now, active suspension systems are nothing new. Mercedes has their E-active body control. BMW offers their adaptive M suspension professional. What makes Audi's system genuinely revolutionary is the integration of forward-facing stereo cameras that scan the road surface up to 80 meters ahead, processing this information through a dedicated neural processing unit that makes suspension adjustments 2,000 times per second. Here's what this means when you're actually driving the vehicle. The system doesn't simply react to road imperfections after your wheels have encountered them. It anticipates them, preloading the suspension dampers and adjusting spring rates before impact. The result, according to early test reports from European journalists who've driven pre-production prototypes, is a ride quality that surpasses the Mercedes GLS, a vehicle that weighs 800 pounds more and sits in a higher price bracket. Think about that for a moment. Audi has managed to deliver S-Class levels of ride refinement in a vehicle that can sprint to 100 kilometers per hour, or roughly 62 miles per hour, in 3.7 seconds. Now, I promise we discuss powertrains in detail, and we've covered the range-topping turbocharged 6-cylinder, but the story becomes even more compelling when we examine the broader engine lineup. The entry-level Q745 TSI utilizes a 2.0-liter turbocharged inline-4, producing 261 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque, or 400 Newton-meters for our European audience. On paper, these figures seem almost pedestrian compared to the flagship model, but Audi has paired this engine with a 48-volt mild hybrid system that provides an additional 15 horsepower, and more importantly, 110 pound-feet of torque instantaneously from a standstill. This mild hybrid architecture employs a belt-driven starter generator that serves triple duty as a starter motor, an alternator, and a torque-fill device that eliminates turbo lag completely. The system also enables genuine engine-off coasting at speeds up to 140 kilometers per hour, or about 87 miles per hour, something that simply isn't possible with traditional 12-volt electrical systems. Real-world fuel consumption figures from European testing cycles suggest the Q745 TFSI achieves approximately 8.9 liters per 100 kilometers in combined driving, or roughly 26 miles per gallon in American terms. That's within striking distance of the Mercedes GLE 450's efficiency figures, but with a more engaging driving experience thanks to the instant torque from the hybrid system. The mid-range Q755 TFSI employs a 3.0-liter turbocharged V6 generating 340 horsepower, positioned strategically between the 4-cylinder and the performance-oriented inline-6. This particular engine will likely represent the volume seller in North American and Middle Eastern markets, where buyers prioritize smooth power delivery and towing capability over ultimate performance. Speaking of towing, Audi has engineered the Q7 to handle up to 3,500 kilograms, or approximately 7,700 pounds, when properly equipped. That's identical to the BMW X5's maximum towing capacity and actually exceeds the Mercedes GLE's 7,200-pound rating. But here's where Audi demonstrates genuine strategic thinking. Every Q7, regardless of engine choice, employs the same 8-speed automatic transmission, the same quattro all-wheel drive system with rear-biased torque distribution, and critically, the same suspension geometry and chassis reinforcements. This might seem like an obvious approach, but consider how BMW differentiates their X5 lineup. The standard models use one suspension setup. The M50i gets upgraded components, and the X5M competition employs entirely different chassis hardware. Mercedes follows a similar philosophy with their GLE range. Audi's approach means that if you purchase an entry-level Q745 TFSI and decide 2 years later that you want more performance, you're not driving a fundamentally different vehicle when you upgrade to the Q760 TSI. The steering feel, the brake pedal progression, the control weight and placement, everything remains consistent across the range. For those of us who've spent decades driving various luxury marques, this consistency represents a level of engineering integrity that's increasingly rare in today's automotive landscape. Now let's discuss interior accommodations, because this is where the 2027 Q7 truly distances itself from both the Mercedes GLE and BMW X5. Audi has increased the wheelbase by 65 millimeters, or about 2.6 inches, compared to the outgoing model. This dimensional change sounds modest on paper, but it translates to genuinely usable third-row seating for adults up to 6 feet tall. I'm not talking about the compromised jump seats we see in so many 3-row luxury SUVs, where anyone over 5'8" requires a yoga instructor's flexibility to maintain comfort for more than 20 minutes. The third row in the 2027 Q7 offers 940 millimeters of legroom, or approximately 37 inches, measured from the rear seat cushion to the back of the second row when positioned for a 6-foot driver. The Mercedes GLE's optional third row provides just 860 millimeters, or about 34 inches, and BMW doesn't even offer a third row in the X5, forcing buyers toward the larger X7 if they need 7-passenger capacity. This seemingly simple dimensional advantage gives Audi access to a buyer demographic that Stuttgart and Munich have effectively conceded: affluent families who want performance and technology without stepping up to a larger, more cumbersome vehicle. The dashboard architecture deserves particular attention because Audi has resisted the industry trend toward eliminating physical controls in favor of touch-sensitive surfaces. Yes, there's a curved 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster and a 14.5-inch NMI touchscreen display, but climate controls, volume adjustment, and drive mode selection remain tactile buttons and rotary knobs. For those of us who remember when BMW's iDrive system represented the pinnacle of intuitive interior design, before they abandoned it for touch-sensitive surfaces, Audi's commitment to physical controls feels almost revolutionary. The material's quality reaches a standard that I frankly didn't expect at the Q7's price point. Open-pore walnut wood trim, not the glossy lacquered variety that screams rental car upgrade, extends across the dashboard and door panels. The leather upholstery uses a semi-aniline tanning process that retains the hide's natural grain and texture. Even the headliner utilizes a woven fabric, rather than the cheap-feeling synthetic suede that's proliferated throughout the industry. These details matter because they're what you experience every single day, long after the new car excitement fades and you're simply commuting to work or shuttling family members to various obligations. Let's address pricing strategy, because this is where Audi has made some genuinely shrewd calculations. The entry-level Q7 45 TSSI starts at approximately 67,900 euros in Germany, or about $73,500 in the United States before destination charges. That's roughly 3,000 euros less than a comparably equipped Mercedes GLE 450, and about 2,500 euros under a BMW X5 xDrive 40i. At the top of the range, the Q760 TSSI Quattro Performance variant will likely command around 94,500 euros, or approximately $102,000. Again, this undercuts the Mercedes-AMG GLE 63S by nearly 8,000 euros and the BMW X5M competition by about 6,500 euros. But here's the detail that dealerships won't readily advertise. Audi's optional equipment pricing has become significantly more transparent compared to previous model years, where Mercedes and BMW often require you to select expensive option packages to access features that should be standard at these price points. Audi has bundled core technologies like adaptive cruise control, lane keeping assistance, and a surround view camera system into the base price. The cynic in me suggests this is partially a response to increasing competition from brands like Genesis, who've demonstrated that luxury buyers appreciate straightforward pricing without the endless nickel and diming that's plagued German manufacturers for the past decade. There's an additional consideration that mature buyers, particularly those of us who've owned multiple luxury vehicles over the years, tend to prioritize above all else, and that's long-term reliability and ownership costs. Audi has committed to an 8-year, 160,000-kilometer warranty on all powertrain components, including the turbochargers and hybrid system elements. That's 100,000 miles for the American audience, and it represents double the coverage period that Mercedes offers on the GLE and a 60% improvement over BMW's X5 warranty. Maintenance intervals have been extended to 20,000 kilometers, or about 12,500 miles, between services for all engine variants. The previous generation Q7 required service every 15,000 kilometers, and while this might seem like a minor improvement, it represents approximately 25% fewer service visits over a typical ownership period. More significantly, Audi has standardized service costs across their dealer network in Europe, eliminating the situation where identical services cost dramatically different amounts depending on your geographic location. Whether you're in Munich, Milan, or Manchester, an oil change on your Q7 will cost the same published rate. Now, there's an elephant in the room that we need to address head-on, and that's the question of electric powertrains. Why would Audi invest so heavily in developing new internal combustion engines when the entire industry seems to be racing toward full electrification? The answer reveals something important about how Ingolstadt views the next decade of luxury SUV sales. Despite aggressive electrification mandates from various governments and bold proclamations from automotive executives about going all electric by 2030 or 2035, the reality on the ground tells a different story. Current data from European markets shows that while EV adoption continues to grow, it's doing so at a much slower pace than early projections suggested. Range anxiety, charging infrastructure limitations, and concerns about battery degradation continue to keep many buyers, particularly those purchasing vehicles in this 70,000 to 100,000 euro price range, firmly committed to internal combustion powertrains. Audi's strategy with the 2027 Q7 acknowledges this reality while maintaining flexibility for future electrification. The vehicle's architecture, known internally as the MLB Evo platform, can accommodate battery electric powertrains with minimal structural modifications. What this means in practical terms is that Audi can offer the Q7 with compelling internal combustion options for buyers who want them, while simultaneously developing a fully electric variant for markets and customers ready to make that transition. It's a hedge bet, certainly, but it's also a remarkably sensible approach given the uncertainty surrounding EV adoption rates over the next 5 to 7 years. Compare this to Mercedes, who've invested billions in their EQE SUV platform only to see sales figures dramatically underperform projections, forcing them to continue developing new combustion engines almost apologetically. The technology integration in the 2027 Q7 deserves deeper examination because it represents a philosophy that differs substantially from what we're seeing from Mercedes and BMW. Rather than overwhelming users with dozens of semi-functional features, Audi has focused on perfecting a smaller number of systems that genuinely improve the driving and ownership experience. Take the augmented reality head-up display, for instance. Instead of simply projecting speed and navigation arrows onto the windshield, the Q7 system actually overlays directional information onto the real-world view ahead of you, highlighting the correct lane for your upcoming turn or indicating the precise location where you should begin braking for an upcoming curve. The system uses the same forward-facing cameras that feed the predictive suspension, combining this visual data with GPS information and real-time traffic data to create a genuinely useful tool, rather than a gimmicky party trick. I've driven systems from every major manufacturer, and most head-up displays end up being more distracting than helpful. Audi seems to have understood that the technology should fade into the background, providing information exactly when you need it without demanding your attention when you don't. The Bang & Olufsen audio system available in the Q7 employs 23 speakers strategically positioned throughout the cabin, including 4 speakers integrated into the headrests. But what makes this system noteworthy isn't the speaker count. It's the digital signal processing that Audi developed in collaboration with the Fraunhofer Institute. The system actually measures cabin acoustics in real time, adjusting frequency response and speaker output to compensate for varying occupancy levels, open windows, and road noise. The result is audio reproduction that maintains tonal balance, whether you're alone in the vehicle or carrying 6 passengers. For audiophiles, and I count myself among this group, this attention to acoustic engineering matters enormously. I've experienced too many luxury vehicles with impressive-sounding audio specifications that ultimately deliver disappointing real-world performance because the manufacturers treated the sound system as a checkbox feature rather than an integral part of the vehicle's design. The Q7's audio system was clearly developed by people who actually care about music reproduction, and it shows in every aspect of the implementation. Let's return to performance for a moment, because there's an aspect of the Q7's dynamics that reveals Audi's engineering priorities in fascinating ways. The Quattro all-wheel drive system now employs a rear differential with active torque vectoring, meaning it can distribute power not just front to rear, but also side to side across the rear axle. Under normal driving conditions, the system sends approximately 40% of engine torque to the front axle and 60% to the rear, creating a distinctly rear-biased feel that's a significant departure from Audi's historical front-biased torque distribution. When cornering aggressively, the system can send up to 85% of available torque to a single rear wheel, essentially rotating the vehicle around its center axis by accelerating the outside rear wheel while allowing the inside rear wheel to spin more slowly. This is the same fundamental principle behind BMW's MX drive system, and it's extraordinarily effective at generating the kind of agile, playful handling characteristics that enthusiasts demand. The difference is that Audi has implemented this technology across the entire Q7 range, not just in a flagship performance model. Mercedes takes a different approach with their 4MATIC all-wheel drive system, prioritizing stability and traction over outright handling dynamism. There's nothing wrong with this philosophy, and for many buyers, particularly those in regions with challenging winter weather, Mercedes' approach delivers exactly what they need. But for drivers who occasionally enjoy exploring a vehicle's dynamic limits on a winding back road, Audi's more aggressive calibration offers noticeably more engagement and entertainment. The brake system on the Q7 employs massive 400mm or roughly 15.7-inch ventilated rotors up front, clamped by 6-piston calipers. At the rear, you'll find 370mm or about 14.6-inch rotors with single-piston sliding calipers. These dimensions are identical to what Mercedes uses on the GLE 63S, and they're actually slightly larger than the standard brakes on the BMW 5 in competition. What's more impressive is the pedal feel Audi has achieved. There's a firm, linear response that provides precise modulation, allowing you to meter braking force with remarkable accuracy. Many modern luxury vehicles suffer from overly aggressive brake-by-wire systems that make smooth stops difficult to achieve, particularly in stop-and-go traffic. The Q7 avoids this pitfall entirely, delivering brake pedal response that feels entirely natural and intuitive. This might seem like a minor detail, but when you're piloting a 5,100-pound vehicle through urban traffic every day, the quality of the brake pedal directly impacts driving pleasure and, frankly, passenger comfort. Now, let's discuss something that rarely appears in automotive reviews, but matters enormously to anyone who's owned a luxury SUV for more than a few years, and that's interior wear patterns and material durability. Audi has conducted accelerated aging tests on all interior materials, simulating 150,000 kilometers of use under various climate conditions. The leather maintains its suppleness and color consistency. The wood trim resists fading and checking. And critically, the touchscreen displays resist the scratching and discoloration that plagues so many vehicles after 3 or 4 years of daily use. I mention this because we're discussing vehicles that many buyers will own for 7, 8, or even 10 years. The initial excitement of new car ownership inevitably fades, and what remains is your daily experience with materials and components that either maintain their quality or gradually deteriorate into a constant source of irritation. Audi seems to have recognized that building a luxury vehicle isn't just about impressive specifications and cutting-edge technology at launch. It's about ensuring those qualities endure throughout the ownership experience. The cargo capacity deserves attention because Audi has managed to increase usable space despite adding third-row seating. With all seats in use, you have 330 liters of cargo space, or about 11.7 cubic feet. Fold the third row flat, and this expands to 865 liters, or roughly 30.5 cubic feet. With both rear rows folded, you're looking at 2,050 liters, or about 72.4 cubic feet. These figures slightly exceed what the Mercedes GLE offers and substantially surpass the BMW X5's cargo capacity. More importantly, the cargo floor is perfectly flat when the seats are folded, without the pronounced step-up that plagues so many 3-row SUVs. As we consider the broader implications of what Audi has accomplished with the 2027 Q7, it's worth reflecting on where this leaves Mercedes and BMW. Both manufacturers have built their reputations on incremental excellence, refining proven formulas, and maintaining brand prestige through careful market positioning. The Q7 challenges this approach directly by offering comparable or superior performance, more advanced technology, better packaging efficiency, and more transparent pricing. That's a formidable value proposition, and it's one that Stuttgart and Munich cannot easily counter without fundamentally rethinking their product development strategies. The question isn't whether Mercedes and BMW can respond to the Q7. Of course they can. Both companies employ thousands of talented engineers and have access to essentially unlimited development resources. The question is whether they can respond quickly enough and decisively enough to prevent Audi from capturing significant market share in a segment where brand loyalty has historically been remarkably strong. Every GLE buyer who cross-shops a Q7 and chooses the Audi represents not just a lost sale today, but potentially a lost customer for decades to come.